Hello and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday on week number 3 of this Beyond Pulse education series. Delighted today to be able to turn it back to an emphasis on the players with our special guest, Mr. James Coppinger. James is a current professional back in England at Doncaster Rovers, and we'll let James share a little bit more of his extensive background and why we're so fortunate to be joined by him today in just a moment. And obviously I have Mr. Mark Wilson here with me again. Just a quick shout out to the guys on the line. If you could make sure that your cameras are off and your microphones are muted, so that we don't get any interference on the line, that would be perfect, especially as obviously James is coming in from across the pond. So James, as we said, thank you ever so much for being here. If you could, mate, we're obviously going to talk about, without wanting to age you too much, how you've managed to sustain a career at the pro level into your 40s, and the lessons that you've learned within a lifetime of a career in the game. So if you could, for the benefit of the boys and girls on the line, provide a little bit of a background into yourself, and then we'll dive into the questions after that.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Tom. Yeah, I started out sort of 16. Up until 16, I played local grassroots football. I had a few opportunities to go into academies or school of excellences, as they were called back then. But yeah, I was told I was too small, that yeah, I could train with certain clubs and I couldn't play on a match day, and that didn't really appeal to me, to be honest. So I stayed at my grassroots club and didn't really want to be a professional footballer. I didn't set out to be a professional footballer. That wasn't something that I strived to be. At 16, I got picked up by a League Two club, Darlington, and got offered a 2-year YTS, which I took. 6 months into that YTS, I signed for Newcastle. Sir Kenny Dalglish was the manager, and he signed me for 1.2 million. So from not wanting to be a professional footballer to then signing for Newcastle at 17, playing with the likes of Alan Shearer, Ian Rush was there. I don't know if people remember John Barnes, Warren Barton. Newcastle had a great team at the time, and sort of 2 years later, at 19, I made my Premier League debut. Sir Bobby Robson handed me my Premier League debut, which was a special moment for me. Again, not wanting to sort of be a professional footballer, sort of 16. 3 years later, I'm making my Premier League debut at St James's Park, partnering Alan Shearer up front, in front of 55,000 people. Yeah, it doesn't probably get any better than that for me. 19, 20, 21, I ended up leaving Newcastle. I had a year left on my contract and was playing in the reserves and wasn't really enjoying it. And yeah, decided to leave, go to Exeter City, who were in League Two at the time. I just wanted to forge out a career for myself. I wasn't really too hung on the tag of a professional footballer. I just enjoyed playing football. So for me, leaving Newcastle, I had all the sort of faith in my own ability, and yeah, sort of it started there for me. The first season at 22, we got relegated out of the Football League. So for me, I'm making my Premier League debut at 19, and then I'm out of the Football League at 22, which was difficult. Sort of had some rough times, which we'll probably go on to, but 23, played in the conference. And then at 23, after that season, I signed for Doncaster, which is where I've been ever since. I've been there 16 years. Worked my way up the ladder to the Championship. Got promoted 3 times with Doncaster. Won the Johnson's Paint Trophy final at Cardiff, which Mark played in as well. So I had some good times, had some amazing times, and like you say, 40 nearly, and still playing, still enjoying football, which is the main thing. And yeah, still sort of getting out, training, and I think I played over 30 games this season so far. So still really enjoying playing football.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and one that I'm super excited to dive into a little bit more, and I think one that's going to be full of wonderful insight for any player that's listening now or later on record. Willow, you've unmuted yourself. Do you want to jump in already, or?
It's not. I wouldn't expect anything other than a humble explanation of what has been a phenomenal career. And I think for me, and I've had the privilege of being in some really elite level environments at United and Middlesbrough around players like, Scholes, Beckham, King, Giggs, and Boxic, Janino, phenomenal players. And not to blow too much smoke up his backside, he belonged in the Premier League. As a player for me, James belonged in the Premier League for not just for 2 or 3 games, but for hundreds of games. And what I admire most about his career is that he went out the Football League, and then still managed to carve out so many moments of success, to ripping up Alan Hutton when he was playing for Spurs, and Harry Redknapp coming into an interview saying, "I thought we were playing Real Madrid, and who was this kid Coppinger on the right hand side?" Absolutely torn to pieces. Compliments like that from top Premier League managers probably tell you where James should have had most of his career. But for me, it was a privilege to play with him, and it's a fantastic story that he's got to share with everybody on the line today.
Yeah, thanks for that, Willow, and I'm super excited to be able to dive into it. Cops, we're going to start, as I said, though, just on the sense of inspiration that's been behind so much of what we've done these last few weeks in difficult times. It's to try to acknowledge and shine a light on some of the people that have been such positive examples throughout all of our guest individuals' careers. So the question that I had for you is, it's a slightly different twist on it, but it's your all-time all-star five-a-side list of teammates, and we said it's teammates that not necessarily are the most gifted, because you've obviously referenced some incredibly talented players, but considering we're trying to target an education to players during this conversation about really what it takes to carve out a career for themselves, can you reference your 5 and the characteristics that really made you feel like, yeah, these are top boys, these are people that I'd go to war with, and these are people that have earned the right to have the careers that they did?
Yeah, 100%. And when you asked me that question, when I finally decided on the 5, I looked through them and I looked at the qualities that they have, and every single one of them has a big character. They've all had disappointments. They've all sort of come through adversity and forged out huge careers. And I'll start with Neil Sullivan, goalkeeper who played in the Premier League for Chelsea, for Tottenham, for Wimbledon, and joined Doncaster when he was 38 years old, 37, 38. You couldn't meet a better goalkeeper. I mean, it's funny, it's ironic, I watched the playoff final back last night at Wembley when we beat Leeds 1-0 and he was in goal, and it's the first time I've ever watched it back, and every time they had a shot, he just seemed to be there. He didn't even have to move. He was 38 at the time, and he was already like there. Every time they had a shot, he was there, and it was just every time the ball went into the box, he would catch it, he would relieve pressure. He was somebody that when I pulled into the training grounds, I looked into the gym, he'd be on the treadmill, already in the gym, already working hard at 38, 39, 40 years old, trying to shed weight, making sure that he was ready for training, one of the best in training. And he just sort of demanded from you every single day in training. You couldn't get away with being sloppy, with being late. He sort of led by example, and he was a standout goalkeeper for me. Defense, I would probably say Rob Jones. He came to us when we won the league, so he was my captain. We won the league, and I've never seen a single season performance from start to finish from anybody like he did that season. He got promoted with Sheffield Wednesday into the Championship the season before he came to Doncaster. And yeah, he was a leader, a talisman. He sort of, again, he didn't get into football, professional football, till he was 22, 23. He was a late starter. I travelled in with Rob all the time. He got knockback after knockback after knockback. He had to go through the non-league system, and then to do all that and come out of it where he was and have the career that he had. Again, like you said, he would be the first person I would go to war with 100%.
Perfect. Number 3.
The third one, I think Mark will know him, Richie Wellens. Richie got released by Manchester United. I'd probably say 18, 19. One of the most, I don't know, he was so gifted as a player, but he had an edge to him. He always wanted to win. He'd always find a way to win. If it wasn't sort of pushing and shoving and kicking and pulling, he would always be in a winning team. He was an absolute nightmare to play with, but at the same time, he was the best player to play with, because I had sort of a fantastic relationship with him, sort of a telepathic relationship. We played the same way, but he would demand. He would be constantly talking to you, shouting to you, giving you stick on the pitch. If you didn't pass it to him, he'd tell you. So yeah, he was a standout player for me, and it's no coincidence that, again, Richie's managing Swindon in League Two and they're top of the league. They're looking to get promoted this season into League One. So his love for football is as big as mine, is as big as anybody I've ever come across. Both his sons are Man United. He's a massive driving force, and football is his life. So Richie Wellens is number 3. Number 4 is somebody who I'm playing with at the minute, Ben Whiteman, he's called. Again, he got released by Man United. He's 23 at the minute. We turned down 1.7 million for him in the summer. He's the standout midfielder in the league at the minute in League One, statistically and everything. He's a hell of a player, but again, he's a hell of a character. 23, and he's our captain. He's Doncaster Rovers team captain, and he leads by example. He demands every day. When we're out, sort of at the minute, when we're training from home, he's constantly messaging me, working hard. He's the one pushing everybody on the group. He's got that something that you need at that age. He's not scared of what people think of him, and he's got talent in abundance. But again, he got released by United. He got a setback. Didn't want to play football anymore, and Sheffield United got him. He went for a trial with Sheffield United, got picked up, went on loan to Mansfield. So yeah, everybody's story, there's a setback and a knockback there, and it's just a matter of building your character, and he's definitely done that. My final player is somebody who I think most people will know. It's Billy Sharp. Billy is another standout player, playing the Premier League at the minute for Sheffield United. But the enthusiasm and desire he has to score goals and to keep scoring goals and to keep working hard is like anybody else's I've ever come across. He's doing it in the Premier League. He did it in the Championship. I think he scored the most goals out of anybody in the last 10 years in the Football League. He's a one-off. Whenever sort of I play midfield, playing the number 10 position, and you're looking to supply people like Billy, again, demanding, put the ball in, I'll be there. You know that he's going to be there. But again, he had setbacks. He left Sheffield United, went to Scunthorpe, got player of the season at Scunthorpe, went back to Sheffield United, got released from Sheffield United again, came to Doncaster, then got player of the season, went to Southampton, got promoted to the Premier League with Southampton, got told he was never going to play in the Premier League. He wasn't good enough. He was too heavy. Then he went back down to playing for Leeds, went on loan all over. And then he's back at Sheffield United and he gets promoted to the Premier League and scores on the opening day. So I think what you alluded to at the beginning was these players have all got talent. Yes, they're all talented because they're playing professional football. But all these players, all 5 players, they all have the same characteristics. They're all winners. They all work hard, but their love for football is is the biggest thing that stands out for me. Every single one of them loved coming in every single day. They loved working hard. They loved being successful. None of these players do it for money. None of them. Not one of them wake up and think, right, I have to get out of bed and work hard to earn a living. They all do it because they enjoy playing football. And yeah, I hope that sort of tells a story, I think.
It's a fantastic start, and again, it's super intriguing insight. And I've scribbled a couple of things that I want to ask you about just before we go into obviously the main chunk of the conversation. So I'm going to go to Billy Sharp for a moment. Myself and Mark have both been fortunate enough to work within the US Club Soccer. It's a ID2 program. It's a national talent identification platform for youngsters here. And one of the conversations with a gentleman that we had on yesterday in camps, he's regularly talking about strikers and their hunger to score. And have you got the mentality where you'd knock your own mother out the way to get, to put the ball in the back of the net, and that kind of that infectious desire and love of sometimes being selfish, but being prepared to go that extra mile. And I think what you've just mentioned about Billy, the best strikers have that kind of ruthless streak where it's that true desire to and hunger to put the ball in the back of the net is something that sometimes can't be taught, right? And they find a way to separate themselves as a result. The other thing, James, more for the benefit of the players, and especially the US players, from a coaching perspective, we often see that there's an apprehension to lead, there's an apprehension to demand from their teammates, there's an apprehension to be instructing on the field. I just like you because you mentioned with Neil Sullivan, you mentioned with Ben that their standards and their ability to demand that from you every day was something that you not only admired but enjoyed about them. So could you please just speak to any of the youngsters listening about having the confidence to be that guy? Because instead of being afraid of somebody playing in front of you and thinking, oh, who are you to tell me what to do? Can you just explain a little bit about how you personally benefit from having that type of character around you?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question because that hasn't always been the case for me. Because I think you're always sort of self-conscious about whether you're doing the right thing. So if you're not having a good game, are you still in the right position to demand from people? And I would definitely say yes. I think if your standards are high and you're doing your best and you're expecting from somebody else, then it doesn't matter whether you keep giving the ball away, whether you've missed an opportunity, whether you should be beating a player and crossing it, whether you take all that out of it. I think the bottom line is, as a team, you're all trying for one goal, and that is to win the game. I feel like them sort of individuals drive me on. I like that sort of. It motivates me to see people in the right way. You've got to communicate in the right way. I've had players that don't communicate in the right way, and they don't have as much respect. And I think as well, talking about respect, I think if I can see Ben Whiteman conducting himself really well every day, doing his best, working hard, and trying to do the right things, then if he's trying to demand from me when I'm slacking or I'm doing something that I shouldn't, then I can't really turn to him and say, well, how can you say that to me? Like, because he's doing it every single day. He's the one that's constantly at it, constantly demanding from himself. So I think it's important that for you to be able to demand from other people, your standards have to be high. You can't demand and not be doing it. You can't be asking people to do a certain thing and you're not doing it yourself. So I feel like it's a really good question. And I think it comes with confidence, but you just have to do it. I think we've all played in teams where there's certain individuals that will demand more. I think the onus is on the captain to demand on the pitch and off the pitch. But I always think that if I go through my most successful teams that I've played in, we've had 11 captains, we've had 10 captains, we've had players that demand from each other every single game that we go out. And it might be big, it might be small, but everybody plays a part in demanding from each other. You build relationships. A goalkeeper might have certain relationships with the defenders. The defenders might have certain relationships with sort of the fullbacks might have certain relationships with the wingers, or the midfielders, and the strikers with the wingers as well. So within that sort of structure, demanding from each and every individual is huge in any successful team.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, James. Just super important for me that the guys and girls that listening get to hear it, as I said, from somebody who's living and breathing it on a daily basis. So Cop's talking more about now you and the journey, and obviously the lessons that we want you to be able to share with people. We'll go back to the beginning. You know, you referenced that you were fortunate to be managed by two of English football's I guess most prominent and high profile names over some of the years in Sir Kenny Dalglish and Sir Bobby Robson, but it didn't work out the way that you hoped at Newcastle, and the move to Exeter, having the courage to drop down, having the courage to back your own ability to get back up. Obviously you said you just want to play, and that mentality is one that I think a lot of people can learn from, the kind of humility that Mark attested to you demonstrate in every walk of your life, but just that hunger to just play the game. Talk a little bit about, you know, why you were comfortable making the move, and whether you were aware of it being a challenge for you to get back to where you wanted to be, because as you said, you know, from going from a Premier League debut at 19 to out the Football League at 22, that's quite a steep drop. So why were you prepared to do it, and then how did you motivate yourself to get back to the heights that you obviously later achieved?
Yeah, I personally don't think I was ever mentally prepared for the step up from Sunday League at 16 to then making my Premier League debut or joining Newcastle at 17. I found it very difficult to understand the magnitude of where I was. My dad used to always say, do you actually realise where you are? You're a Premier League club. Newcastle were top 4 in the Champions League at the time. And I never actually, I wouldn't say I took it for granted, but I didn't really realise where I was. So it was difficult. I was just basically going to training and playing football every day. I wasn't sort of taking it seriously. I know that sounds a little bit blasé, but that's the mentality I was in. Making my Premier League debut, obviously played under Ruud Gullit after Sir Kenny Dalglish, which was really, really eye-opening. I mean, I went to pre-season, scored some goals, went to Holland, went to Germany, did really well, and then, like you say, Sir Bobby Robson came in and put everybody on the transfer list straight away. So I was put on the transfer list, and had to prove myself. I went on loan twice to Hartlepool, did really, really well, and came back at 19, and yeah, I made my debut at 19, and I thought I'd made it. You know, I stopped doing all them things that I'd been doing, working hard. I got carried away with the hype of the Premier League, with the hype of me making my Premier League debut, and then before you know it, a year passes. My granddad actually passed away, and I was in a sort of total different mindset. My mentality wasn't good, and yeah, I ended up moving to Exeter because I wanted to play football, because I wasn't enjoying my football at Newcastle. I felt like when I went on loan twice to Hartlepool, it gave me that taste of first team football and something that I wanted to do. And I just backed myself because I know how much I love playing football, and I know how much sort of I believed in myself, and I knew that if I was playing first team football, it would give me the opportunity to show people what I could do.
And I think that mentality leads really nicely into the next question about, you've obviously referenced already 3 managers that you played under, and a 4th before we went on record in Sean O'Driscoll, but over your career, I don't personally know, I don't even know if you know the actual number of managers that you've played under, but it's been a significant amount. And you just mentioned proving your worth. How have you continued to demonstrate, you know, that worth to multiple managers over the years? And how have you adjusted to the multiple different styles and demands that people have placed upon you in terms of, hey, this is a tactical approach that we're going to take. Hey, this is what I want you to do in possession. This is what I want you to do out of possession. Because you've kept yourself as a prominent figure at Doncaster for over a decade. How?
Yeah, I think adapting to what's around you for the teammates that you've got. I obviously played in some great teams that have got promoted. I played in the Championship for 6 seasons with Doncaster, and then I played in League Two with Doncaster with a different set of players. So adapting to the players that are around you, what the manager expects from you, not thinking that you're too good to play in certain teams, not thinking you're too good to play in certain positions. Just being open enough, not having an ego. I've never had an ego. I've never sort of thought that I was better than anybody else in terms of sort of giving it out. In my head, I believe in myself. I believe I can do certain things, but I feel like sort of adapting to managers has been definitely something that I've been really good at and been aware of. I think that's the biggest thing. If I hadn't been able to do that, then, like you say, I think sort of 8, 9 managers at Doncaster, probably 12, 13 throughout my career. I definitely still wouldn't be playing now. I mean, I've had some fantastic managers, and I deal and I work better with structure. I think the managers that I've worked better with are the ones that have demanded the most from me, the ones that have been consistent with their delivery. So it doesn't matter, regardless of result. It's all, a lot of it's based on performance. So if we lose, the message is consistent. It's the same as if we win. So I played under managers where it's different. You lose and you're in on a Sunday, or you're running because you've got beat, or which doesn't really work for me, and has never really worked for me. I think as long as you're trying to do the right things, and the things that you work on Monday to Friday, you try to apply them on a Saturday. If like you say, you perform well and you get beat, managers that have sort of said, look, we were unlucky today, we should have won, keep doing what you're doing. I think they're the best managers that I've worked with, and they're the ones that have basically got the most success. But I definitely think that adapting to certain circumstances and being aware of your surroundings, players, managers, etc., is the reason why I'm still playing.
And to both of you here, obviously in our side of the Atlantic now, Cops, there's a lot of the players that might listen are going to be aspiring to go and play in the US collegiate system. And just like the pro game at home, head coaches can change, and people that brought you into a program might not stay. To either of you, you've obviously been in a number of dressing rooms over your time. Like James, you mentioned why you feel that you've been able to do it. What do you think those managers or those head coaches look for from players like yourselves, who were both immersed within first team squads when a change was made, and both obviously came with quite high profiles? Like, do you think there was anything different that they saw in you, to either of you?
For me, Tom, and Cops, obviously you and I played under Sean O'Driscoll for 5-6 years, and that was basically a team full of Premier League has-beens and misfits that were brought together under a set of principles. Accountability, leadership, being the very, very best version of you could possibly be, while also growing and learning more about the game. And I think we probably at some point maybe thought as mid-20s, late 20s, well, how much more can I learn? And my eyes were completely opened. And everybody asked me about different managers I played for and who have you learned the most from. And it's not a Sir Alex Ferguson, it's not a Steve McLaren, it's not a Brian Kidd, it's not a Brian Flynn at Wrexham. It wasn't even a Brian Flynn and a Robbie Martinez at Swansea. It was a Sean O'Driscoll, purely because of the perspective he got us to look from. And in terms of having that balanced, consistent message, he was probably the most balanced and consistent in terms of message that I'd ever played for. Again, you know what it's like being at a Premier League club, Cops. You can have a good 30 minutes in a first team, you can have a good game, you can have a good 2 games, but depending on the manager's agenda, depending on their perspective, and then as young players as we were breaking into the first team, if you aren't able or to deal with that or mature enough to deal with that, you become inconsistent. You become inconsistent with your behavior at training, with what you might do off the field, and then with your performances on the field, and you start to blame. That's certainly what I did. So as soon as I found a consistency, you can see it almost in my stats of playing games. I find a consistency of message, I find a purpose and principles I can buy into. And I played more games. So yeah, the manager's opinion and how you adapt to that, not thinking that they should adapt to you, is a really critical piece.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. But I've also played with managers that are the opposite. I've been unfortunate to play under a couple of managers that, when you said what do they expect from you, they expect the opposite of what I was trying to give them, which was honesty, endeavor, commitment, all the things that I spoke about there. Certain managers, well, the 2 managers that I've worked with, they didn't want that. They wanted certain individuals. They wanted what they thought was pure talent. They weren't consistent with their behaviors and their actions and what they were trying to do, and I struggled with that. And subsequently, we got relegated in both seasons. So it wasn't like they were doing that and they were getting success from that. They were doing that on their own little journey of becoming a manager. The 2 managers aren't actual managers anymore. They've never had a job since they were managers. So for me, it proves that to be successful, you need to be consistent. That's the standout thing. Like Mark said, Sean O'Driscoll was a massive advocate for being consistent, to the point of sometimes it was his own downfall in the end, I think. But he was a good manager, he was a good coach. But again, Sean isn't working at the level I feel like he should be because of the way he communicates. I think he struggles with communicating to people and getting the best out of people individually. But like you say, I think he always looked for the right type of player and the right type of attributes within players.
Do you think, James, that and you know the kind of development curves we went through with Sean, that because he knew he wasn't an overly good communicator on a one-to-one basis, he built mechanisms and he had us train and play in a certain way that meant we took ownership of that entire group, like to the point where he even wanted us to pick the ball up in training and stop it if we thought the standard was garbage, and just give our heads a wobble and get back to doing what we had been doing previously.
Yeah, I think I remember playing in a game and it wasn't working. We were getting beaten, and I changed the formation within the game. So second half, I went, right, we'll go from, I think we were playing 4-3-3. I said, right, we'll go back to 4-4-2, and we ended up winning the game. And we came off. He was like, who changed the formation? And I was like, I'm going to get it here. And he was like, that's unbelievable. That's what I want. I want people to take responsibility. I want people to take ownership. And he never got criticised from Sean if you did take ownership and it didn't work. That's the difference. So a lot of managers I've worked for want it, and if you do it and it doesn't work, then they come down on you like a ton of bricks. But for him, he was consistent. If you took responsibility and it didn't work, he was like, brilliant. You actually tried to do the right thing. You took responsibility for the right reasons, but we didn't get the right outcome, which next time we will. So he's a one-off. I obviously had a spell with him at Nottingham Forest when I went on loan there, and he was manager there, and he got them into the playoffs and got sacked. And he had something special there. He was creating something special there, and he didn't get the time that he wanted or that he deserved. For that reason, I feel like he didn't communicate. He didn't. I wouldn't say give people lip service, but he didn't play people in the right way. He doesn't have to. Sean was too honest in the way that he did things. He felt like he had to be the same with every single person, and that's okay to get you a certain result. But I feel like for him personally, I think he would have been better off trying to work on his communication skills.
Fascinating conversation for the coaches listening about. Again, I don't think either James or Mark are questioning anybody's, and certainly not Sean's, tactical knowledge, the X's and O's, the ability to probe and prod and try to get you to think differently. But so heavily the last few weeks we've heard about the interpersonal skills and the relationship piece, and that seems to be something so prominent to what you're both addressing. So it's really intriguing. Thank you. James, I'm gonna shift directions a little bit to again, we've referenced that you're 30 games in to a season already. You're approaching the big 4-0. How have you done it? How have you kept yourself fit and healthy enough? And in a profession where obviously you're seeing so many people exit the game kind of early to not even mid-30s at this point. How are you keeping going, and how have you managed to be an integral member of the group still at the time that you currently find yourself at in your life?
Yeah, I think the biggest the standout reason is my mentality. I make no sort of no excuses for that. I mean, sort of I've worked on that and I work on it continuously. Adapting to, like I said, surroundings, players, managers, but also I absolutely love playing football. There's not one day I wake up in the morning and I think, oh my God, I have to go into training. And I travel an hour and 15, an hour and 30 minutes there, and an hour and 15, hour 30 minutes back to training every single day. So I live and breathe football, but not to the extent that people might think. I've got 3 kids. I do a lot with them as well, 13, 12, and a 6-year-old daughter. So I've got that sort of pick them up from school, take them to football, take them to dancing. I do all that as well, but I love the challenge. I love everything that I do, and not one ounce of me sort of regrets still playing. And like you say, started 28 out of the first 25 games of the season. Most key passes in the division, most assists in our team. I had most assists last season, player of the season 2 seasons ago, promoted. So for me, I don't know, I'm just driven by wanting to be successful, wanting to prove people wrong. I think that's a big thing for me. I think that's the key thing. I love proving people wrong. I get a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people saying you're finished, your legs have gone, you can't keep doing it, why don't you retire, this, that and the other. But for me, I like it. It spurs me on. Like I say, statistics are massive for me at my age, because you can prove it. My running stats, my sprints, my high distance running, everything's up there with everybody else's. I keep telling people I'm getting quicker, which is it entertains everybody. But I love being around. We sort of have a young squad, sort of 18 to 24-year-olds. I think there's one or 2 lads that have got families. That's it. So I love helping other people. I love influencing other people and passing on my knowledge. So yeah, that all combined is the reason why I'm still going at 39, and I've been offered hopefully a new contract to see me into 40.
The real life Benjamin Button. Honestly, I saw a clip online the other day actually, where your ball's rolling into you under pressure from 2 players. I don't know whether you might have shared it, and you just spun around and left them for dead. And I'm like, he's not slowing down yet. What the hell are you eating? What are you drinking? Because it just seems that every time I see a clip of you twisting or turning, even against much younger players, you've not lost that half step and that ability to be the under player. It's nuts.
Yeah, the scary thing is, like, I've played over 750 career games now, and Averaged 40 plus games for the last 17, 18 seasons. So my body is immune or is conditioned to do it. And I genuinely, I know when I say this, people think like you must be lying, but like I actually feel as good as I've ever felt. And it's weird because people, when you speak to people that don't watch you every week and just see me every now and again and go like, oh, you're retiring next season. I'm like why would I retire if people just want you to retire because you're 39, not because you've sort of had enough or you're still playing well. So for me, I feel like it would be a travesty if I just went, yeah, I'm retiring because I'm 39, but yeah, I'm playing 40 games a season and contributing as much as anybody else. Football is an ageist sport, and when you do get over 30, people have finished you off, and you don't get bigger contracts and you don't get longer contracts. But again, sort of when I reached 35, I took my pension, and I've been working year to year. So every year I have to prove myself to Doncaster fans, to myself, to the managers, to the coaching staff, to everybody. And I relish that challenge. I absolutely love it. I know it's going to end, and I know it'll be all over for me, I think, in the next couple of seasons. But it'd be a shame to just stop now. I mean, I know a lot of people that have ended it through injury, and a few lads have ended it recently through mental health as well. And I'd be doing them a disservice if I just packed it in just for the sake of it.
Fascinating answer. Thank you, James, for the honesty there. Willow did say though, Willow did say, like, what's he eating, what's he drinking? So what is the secret? What are you doing? Like, but if you could speak to speak to the young players, because again, I think sometimes it's, we use the analogy of the fuel that you put into nice cars, right? And if you expect to be a high performer, you've got to put in the right type of fuel. You can't run a Maserati on just regular unleaded gas. So talk to me about what a daily routine looks like, or how conscious are you of what you're putting into your body and the decisions that you're making to help you keep performing the way that you are.
Yeah, I don't just think it's diet, it's the way I look after my body with stretching. I see the masseur every day. I'm conscious of how my body feels and what my body needs. I think that's the biggest thing. I think when I got to about 27, 28, I understood what I needed and what sort of my body expected in terms of output as well. So I've stayed about the same weight. Like I say, I eat the same sort of stuff. I don't really change. I eat in moderation, so I don't really do any weird and wonderful diets that I cut anything out. And yeah, I do sort of go in the gym every morning. I do activation. I do a lot of yoga. So I do things that genuinely make me feel good and make my body feel good. I recover really well. Ice baths after every game. And yeah, foam rollers, things like that. We are good at secondary recoveries as well. So the manager does look after me a little bit.
Yeah, he plays his part.
Yeah, and I do get the odd Monday off to help me recover. But I think it is important. Obviously, your diet. It's important that you do eat in moderation and you do try and eat the right things. I think every single player is different, so every single player will need something different, and something different will work for them. So it's hard to try and tie down a specific thing, but whatever works for you. And what the obviously benefit I have is I've had success, I've had failure. So when I was going through my hardest times, my diet wasn't good. I was going out, I was partying, I was doing all the things I shouldn't be doing. And when I've been successful, I've looked after myself. I've ate the right things. I've basically had the right amount of sleep. I've looked after my body. So it's no coincidence that one comes with the other.
Yeah, and I think, Cops, you mentioned stuff there that again we speak about, whether it's directly to coaches or to players, that the performance that people see is the tip of the iceberg, right? And the process underneath it, the stuff that people don't get to see and don't get an insight into, that, you know, as you said, you know, the stuff with your yoga and your activation and your ice baths and your recoveries and your extra day when you need it, like, and the decisions that you're making to say no to things when you need to say no to them, it all contributes towards that performance. And, you know, we've spoken a lot about people walking their talk, right? I say I want to be a professional footballer. Do I understand the sacrifices that it makes? You know, to on the line with college aspirations. You say you want to play a Division 1 school, any school. Do you understand what it takes to get there? And then not just getting there, but then staying there, and not just staying there, but being a valuable asset in those places. Because, you know, you've both been in dressing rooms and played with players who, obviously, Willow, you say it all the time, mentality is what defines people that, you know, have got all the talent in the world, but are unprepared to make the same types of sacrifices that you've alluded to. So again, thank you for that little bit of insight. I want to close off my questions, Cops, with, you know, we've said it's really been a lifetime in the game at this point for you. So, you know, what are the lessons that you've learned along the way, and the subsequent advice that you have to the younger viewers, especially in regards to the conversation we just started offline about capitalizing now on an opportunity to get better technically, to put in, you know, to work on, we'll call them weaknesses, to, you know, to increase, you know, certain characteristics in your play. Could you kind of lend a little bit of insight to that?
Yeah, I mean, what I will do with straight away with the question that you just said before that, when you alluded to mentality and sacrifice. So we've just obviously, because of the coronavirus, we've stopped playing. But I take for granted, and I think people take for granted, that once I was at home and I was told, look, you're not going to come in for 2 weeks, I switched off completely. Like, it's the first time in 8 months that I've been able to switch off and relax and probably do things with the family that I've not been able to do in 8 months. And that is just a mentality. So every single day of the week, my mind is on football. And it might not be, I'm thinking about it 24/7, but I have to go to bed a certain time because I have to get the right amount of sleep. I can't eat certain things. I can't go out to, say, a wedding or a christening or certain things that I might be able to do if I wasn't playing. So my mind is fully on that sort of that season, if you like, every season up until it finishes. It's exhausting. It is tiring. But like you say, you want to be a professional footballer. I want to play football at this level, that level. There's a lot. If you want to play and you want to be successful and you want to do it properly, there's a lot that comes with it, and it is enjoyable, but you do have to work hard. And like you said, it's a fantastic point, because I think people do take it for granted, and they do see all the things that come with it. They don't see the sacrifice and everything behind it. Yeah, the question that you've just asked, I think, because we're at home and we're in the garden, or we're sort of isolated to certain areas, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to work on our techniques, to get a ball out, to go in the garden. I did a few videos for my kids and for Doncaster, just shared them with them, that they can get out and work on certain things. I think if you can come out of this in 3-4 weeks time, however long it's going to be, and take something away from it, then the technical part of playing football, if you're consistent, little steps, and I don't mean going in the garden for an hour, 2 hours, I mean 10, 15 minutes here and there, 5 minutes, just keeping the ball up, doing certain things, certain drills, it can help you no end. And for me personally, when I was a kid, that's all I did. We had no choice. We didn't have iPads, we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have Sky TV. It was take a ball out and do what you want. So we will roam the streets. I learned all my football skills from being out on the streets with my friends, and it's totally different now. But this, I think, is allowing us to do that, is to stay at home, make the most of it. That's what I would say. Turn it into a positive, get in the garden, and work on your touch and the technical part of the game.
Back in the day, Cops, it was plant pots and the house cat for me, dribbling around and knocking holes in the garden sheds.
I didn't even have a football, it was a tennis ball.
Mate, anything you could get your hands on. But yeah, I think we're going back to a time where what a great opportunity to be creative, use your imagination, and really develop something in the next 4 weeks, 8 weeks that you've really got time to focus on, and come out the other end with another attribute, an enhanced technique, another layer to your development that you might not have had the opportunity to get in the normal structured day-to-day kind of life as a soccer player here in the US.
Can I just say as well that I haven't really spoke about it, but belief is one of the biggest factors as well. You've got to believe in yourself. For everybody watching, I don't know what your aspirations are, and I don't know what you want to achieve, but you have to believe in yourself. That is a given. That is the first thing that comes with it. I say to my young teams all the time that if you don't think you're the best player playing football in this team, then you need to find it. And I don't mean go and shout it from the rooftops that I'm the best and you're rubbish. What I mean is when you turn up to training or a game, you've got to think that you're the best player on the pitch. And if you don't think that right now, then try it. Try it in everything that you do. You have to believe in yourself. You have to find a way of making things work for you. And if you want it, enough, you'll get there 100%. I've worked on it. I know it for a fact. I'm not guessing. It's something that is bulletproof. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because I think belief is a standout component.
It's a key life skill, right? If you think about, I know what you're going to do next, and you'll be successful with your business ventures, and if you become a sporting director, you'll be successful whatever you're going to do next because of the self-belief you have in yourself as an individual, as a person. And I think if you can find mechanisms, work with people, obviously there's professionals out there that can help you understand what self-belief is, what it feels like, how you can challenge yourself to build that self-belief. If you can do that through sports, through something you love, whatever you do in life, it'll always stay with you, and you'll walk into any room believing that you can achieve your goals in any industry. So I think I couldn't agree more, Cops. That self-belief is arguably the most critical component of you having success in this life.
Yeah.
Thank you to you both for that. I'm going to open it, guys, to questions. Fuad, you've popped up with one. So James, again, it's something that you probably get asked quite a lot, but what's your opinion on why players fall into the cracks and never quite get the break that perhaps their quality suggested that they might? Is it luck? Is it the environment? Is it belief? Is it timing? Is it, or as we've said, is it, mentality? If there's one thing that you could put your finger on, what do you think it would be?
I don't think it's luck. I had a conversation with Ender Stevens, who's now playing the Premier League. When he was at Doncaster, he's left back. He's playing for Ireland now, and he thought he was lucky to go to Aston Villa. He was on loan from Aston Villa to Doncaster, and he was like, I was lucky that I got picked up. And I was like, it's got nothing to do with luck. I believe you make your own luck. I believe that, like I said there, if you believe in yourself and you believe it's going to happen, it will happen. You just got to keep doing it and keep trying, and people will find you if that's what you want to do. You've got to make your own luck. You've got to get out there and make sure that people see you. I don't know. I couldn't probably, because I didn't want to be a professional footballer, but because I was doing it and because I enjoyed it and because I was out there, it sort of happened for me. And even when I've had my setbacks, I've always sort of believed that I would get over them and things would work out for me. So I think for me personally, that's always helped. So I find it very hard to believe that it's about luck.
Yeah, and I think we spoke the other day, James, about earning the right to expect success, right? So you earn the right to expect to win as a team based on the quality and dedication, commitment, intensity levels of practices. You earn the right to obviously a successful career by whether it's coaching or playing, by what you put into it. So I think that it seems to echo quite a lot of what you say there, just in terms of there are no shortcuts, right? And there are no secrets. Tom Bray has asked unopposed to opposed ratio with his best managers. I'm assuming this is about practice, practice design and structure. So obviously in the first team, you know, what is the ratio of training activities and types of training that you do, and what have you found to be most beneficial?
In what respect? So
on the best managers that you've worked with, so whomever you consider to be the best, how much time did they spend on functional phase of play, games-based scenarios versus how much line drills and patterns and things like that? What did you find to be the most?
Opposed or unopposed, yeah.
Yeah, so I think our manager at the minute, Darren Moore, is really good. Obviously, he was at West Brom in the Premier League a few seasons ago, and he's come in and done an amazing job. He does a lot of shape work, which is sort of, for me personally, you need to do. It's really good for the younger players. I think the tactical part of the game has gone from strength to strength. I think people need to understand what's expected of them in every single position. In whatever formation you play, you need to understand what you're doing, because I've worked with teams where you just go, there you go. We're playing 4-4-2 or we're playing 4-3-3, and it's a toss of a coin whether we play well or not. So the best managers, Darren Moore, Sean O'Driscoll, Darren Ferguson, Alex Ferguson's son. We had him for 2 seasons. We got promoted out of League Two with him. Fantastic manager. We have meeting after meeting after meeting. We go into depth about the opposition, what they're good at, what they're not good at. We do a lot of phase of play with Darren Ferguson on formation. So I feel like the best managers are the ones that are the best prepared. But at the same time, you have to find a happy medium. I mean, there's only so much information you can take on as a player. We can go into meetings for 40 minutes and you come out of it thinking, oh my God, I don't even know what we've just been through, because a lot of them switch off after, I'd say, a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So you find a balance between meetings and practical work out on the pitch, and you're onto a winner. And I think probably Sean O'Driscoll was one of the best at that. And Darren Moore at the minute is really good at that. You know, Grant McCann, who's at Hull, we got the playoffs last season with Grant, missed out in the semi-final on penalties. He was really, really good at that. The meetings weren't long. He got his point across, and everybody knew what was expected of them.
Just to answer Tom's question a little further, and I get caught in this sometimes. We all do as coaches. We're sometimes looking for this black and white answer in a game full of grey, and I think the grey piece is the context. So what group of players are you working with? What ability level are they at? What maturation level are they at? Like psychologically, what can they deal with? What level are you playing at? How important is a system? How important is a role and responsibility for each player, depending on age and what league you're playing in? And I think once you take into account the context, you'll probably find there's a mix of opposed and unopposed. And when you build it into a periodized schedule, it will adapt, it will evolve. But I don't think it's a volume of one over the other. I think about, as always with things in life, it's a blend of unopposed and opposed practices that in the right circumstance, in the right context, are valuable for the players.
I think as well, it's what you've been brought up with. I mean, we have had a lot of senior players that had never been conformed to having meetings and going through formations and structures and everything. And they used to be like, oh my God, we've got another meeting. Whereas now we have younger players that have been brought up with it, and they know it, and they know what's coming, and they're expecting it, and they can concentrate for longer. So yeah, it works better with them sort of players. So I think it's difficult when you have a group of players trying to please everybody. That's why I think if you keep it short and sharp and everybody knows what's expected of them, I think that works the best in my experience. Perfect.
Last question from me. Premier League debut or beating Leeds at Wembley?
I'll have to say beating Leeds at Wembley, only because
I agree with that answer.
Yeah, only because I can't really remember that much about my debut. I was 19, which is over 20 years ago, and I feel like like watching it back, the playoff final at Wembley in front of 80,000 people, beating our local rivals, and missing out on promotion on the last day of the season, and then going through the playoffs. I scored a hat trick in the semi-final, and I probably couldn't have wrote it any better for myself and for the team. So yeah, definitely the Leeds final.
Perfect. Well,
I would love to say that, but Old Man River here was pulling a hernia along with him, so sat in the stands most of the time watching all that unfold. Well, no, what an incredible time, and you're right, Cops. I think as a script personally for you as well, what an incredible time to be playing a game with what was an incredible team. Really, I think really good team.
Yeah, well, James, thank you ever so much for sharing your time with us this evening. Obviously, where you are, it's much appreciated. The insight is fascinating. I'm sure for highly beneficial for everybody listening now and again later. So on behalf of myself, Willow, and Team BP, sincerely thank you, mate. That was brilliant. To everybody else, thank you again for being here and spending some of your early afternoon or late morning with us. We will go again. Every time this week is going to be right around the same 12 to 2 Eastern time. So we look forward to having you guys on the line with us again. But thank you for your interest and support of everything that we're doing, and enjoy the rest of your days. Thanks, guys.
My pleasure.